All right, we're like rocking out over here.
Love it.
I'm telling you, this stock rock music gets me going.
Yeah, I got some EDM for you too if you want to juice it up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I use StreamYard here for these live broadcasts, and they've got their free music stuff, and they've got some interesting choices, and the rock music just happens to be the best one. But welcome everyone to today's broadcast. Super happy for you guys to all join, and I'm going to dive in here in a little bit, but I want to give people an opportunity to see us and then join and enlarge their screen and all that good stuff. So I'm going to jibber jabber for a little bit and remind you of a few things. One is, if you are watching live, please participate. You can say hello in the comments, ask questions. Really, that's the way we get the most out of these conversations. It's a lot more fun too when you participate and you have questions to ask, or just comments. It doesn't even have to be a question. It could be like, Mike, you're completely wrong. You're an idiot. And that's fine too. I'll be like, okay, yeah. Tell me something new. But make comments, enjoy this conversation. And it'll help us do the same thing. And then also, I did want to remind those that are interested in going to contact.io, which is August 29th and 30th, that there is a price increase March 15th. So that, I believe, is next Saturday. So not March 9th this Saturday, but March 15th is a Friday. And that's the last day of the early bird prices, which is at $6.95. And just one point of recognition here with the price point. We have a full refund guarantee up to 14 days to the event. So most shows don't even have a refund policy at all.
That's awesome.
So buy the $6.95 pass. Don't wait. And if you can't make it, I hope you will know that 2 weeks prior to the show and let us know, and we'll refund you the whole money. Awesome. We're not going to sit on that when you can't come to the show. But if you let us know 14 days within, to the show, then obviously you're out of luck. But
buy the pass now. Then they're going to the show. They're in luck.
Yeah, or they're in luck, and they're going to go to a show for only $6.95, which is a great deal. Probably, it's definitely on the lower end for conferences. So that price goes up on Saturday. So contact.io. So anyways, enough of that. I want to welcome my friend Ethan Ewing to the show today. He's with ProPair, the founder and CEO of ProPair. Ethan and I go back a long ways. I used to buy leads from Ethan when I was a lead buyer for a mortgage company, and he was slinging leads. So welcome back, Ethan.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mike. It's awesome. Yeah, awesome to be here. I love that you do this stuff. So pleasure to be with you.
It's fun. So just real briefly, what the heck is ProPair? Because you're not selling leads anymore.
Not in the lead business. No, I mean, I started it, I was in the lead business for 10 years prior. This business is now 8 years old. So prior to starting ProPair, I ran a business called bills.com for 10 years, sold a ton of leads. We're spending $4 or $5 million a month on driving traffic, generating leads, selling them into lenders. And the challenge that, and there's Jessica who bought leads. We've all bought leads from Ethan. There you go. So they all know. And the interesting, because like when you're generating leads and when you're selling leads into buyers, is you just hear a lot of different feedback around how leads perform. And that was always interesting to me because, like if you're a lead buyer, a traffic generator, you're pretty familiar with your channels, things are pretty consistent. And so to get different feedback on the same types of leads is always like, okay, well, something is different. And so we would spend time with lenders, with lead buyers working on, well, what are you doing with leads when you get them? And then you realize before you do that, you're getting too into operational stuff and you're starting to dig into their business. And then it becomes a services thing, and you're telling them what to do, and they don't really care. So the thing that ultimately I came to was like, hey, there's a lot of data coming through here, and people have not confusion, but there's a lot of different paths people can do. So it was a great application for AI, early AI, and we do traditional AI and customized models for shops. And basically, what you're doing is instead of just saying, "Hey, here are your leads," now what you're able to do is you're able to tell them, "Hey, here's a lead, and here's the likelihood of you specifically converting that lead. Here's a recommendation for who you might want to assign that lead to. Here's a recommendation for how long you should nurture that lead. Here's a recommendation for which channel you should use to follow up with that lead." And there are these signals that come along in real time. They come along with data or with those leads. And so I'm not sitting here telling people what to do, but you're giving them these predictive values that then help them design their workflows around those values. So it's been very effective. It's been fun, and it's cool to be, in the software side. I mean, slinging leads is a hard business, as everybody knows, and the I'm not saying adversarial, but the relationship between lead sellers and lead buyers.
They love you or hate you, right? They kind of, either love you or hate you.
Felt like.
Well, listen, I'm curious before we get into what why we're having this conversation. But having said everything you said about your history selling leads, and then now we're sort of analyzing tons and tons of leads. How's lead quality these days? Like, just generally, like, do you have any insight, like from 10 years ago when you're at Bill's, like lead quality was X? Is it still the exact same, or have things gotten from a performance standpoint worse, or maybe even slightly better? And maybe even that answer doesn't have to do with performance, but maybe just overall intent quality.
Yeah.
What is there any, what's the state of, from your point of view right
so
now?
that's one of your surprise questions. I got
that
you.
was my surprise question.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I would say surprisingly, it's been pretty consistent. So like, without naming names, the biggest real-time lead generator in the space, we see their numbers. I've seen their numbers for the past 7 years, and it's stayed in a pretty consistent band. And I think everybody knows I'm not revealing any big secrets. You're talking for shared leads, shared form leads, you're talking in the 1% to 2% range, right? Like that's, you have a little variance in there. So that has stayed consistent. Certainly, like 2020 and 2021 in the mortgage industry was kind of crazy just as far as pull through goes. And there was different sources. Costco was a big source and, had crazy conversion numbers. But in the last 2 years, things are like surprisingly consistent. And it's funny because like, that's a really good question. I hadn't actually thought about anticipation of this, but like that's one of those things where, the leads are kind of like the leads are there. These are prospects. These are people in market. And so it really comes down to how lead buyers are shaping their outreach, what they're doing. Their sales process is ultimately, the biggest driver. And we see that in aggregate, that performance has stayed consistent, but you certainly see massive variance between lead buyers' performance in their sales conversion, just massive difference on the same leads. So the thing that 10 years ago was like, I want to go try to understand this. Now we're seeing, and yeah, it comes down to individual lead buyers crafting their experience around what they're actually seeing.
Do you think it has to do with this, like Jessica's saying, because of their receipt in terms of their delivery of their mix, their marketing mix? She said max, but she was updating it to mix. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think. Yeah, I mean, we used to call it chicken salad. I had a marketer who called it chicken salad, and I would say, like, in all candor, I'm not just like in all candor. I never thought about it as chicken salad because like the reality is like, if you're a lead seller, you're trying to generate good traffic. Like, you don't want to deal with.
Absolutely.
You just don't want to hear people say, "Oh, your leads are terrible." Like you're trying to generate good stuff, but there's a limit to how much high intent traffic is out there. So I think Jessica probably nailed it. Like, there's an aspect you have to make money and keep the doors going. So you have some low quality sources that just aren't going to perform as well. Lead buyers end up knowing that they pay less for those, or they pay less for the mix. So Jessica's probably right. There's just this mix, and it's channel driven, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's search, it's display advertising, it's your email marketing, it's your affiliate stuff. There's a pretty consistent associated performance with all those channels. So your channel mix definitely impacts your overall performance.
Yeah. Just another like not really hypothetical, but just put your, your wizard hat on again here with this. But do you think with the, the upcoming changes with regulatory stuff with regards to one-to-one matching, the consumer needs to select each and every company that's going to receive that lead on that form and provide consent. Do you think that's going to be a big shift in quality as far as from the buy side? I'm not talking about conversion rate at this point in time, but or is it going to be sort of much of the same? Just what your thought is?
I mean, I think I feel like kind of an idiot on this one because I think a lot smarter, more informed people, know this topic well at this point. I'm far from it, but like on the somewhat outside looking in with some context, it feels to me like this is a massive change. Like this is the change that the industry has been like I don't know, like maybe concerned about, but maybe anticipating. And it feels to me, the sense is like shared leads are, you're just going to see more exclusive leads. Leads prices should go up. We should generate better leads. It should be better for lead buyers. It should be better for consumers. It's going to be a transition for lead generators. It's going to be super hard on lead generators and marketers. It's just going to be hard, and they're going to have to transition, and lead buyers are going to have to be understanding and empathetic to that. Like, it's like lead prices are going to go up, and you can't, beat the heck out of your lead providers, your marketing partners on that. You just can't. You got to be a partner. And if you're going to beat them up, they're not going to make the transition. They're not going to they're not going to bridge the gap. They're not going to make it. This is now my opinion. It's too extreme of a gap and too extreme of a transition for what, at least how I'm seeing it. So there's got to be a partnership in the industry here. And if there's not,
well, and at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to lead price, right? It comes down to cost per conversion, right? So but that's still scary when someone goes, hey, instead of paying, I don't know, $15, I need to go to 20, which is a lot more. Yeah. And you haven't seen necessarily that test or that conversion rate, that change. So I was just kind of curious. Those are my surprise
it's going to be interesting. I mean, on one degree, it'd be fun to be in the industry because, like, that's it's definitely an opportunity, right? The obstacle is the way.
I think you'll see some of this, right? You'll see some of the repercussions of some of these changes, especially if you're aware of certain sources that you're seeing with your partner, your clients, that are making those changes in real time and monitoring them and seeing what's going on. So, maybe we'll check back with you. I guess my guess is that companies are already starting to implement this, but it'll probably take another 6 months to really fully implement it. And then obviously it needs to be completely done by, I think, January or February 2025. So,
I'll just add one more comment on there, Mike. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is a moment of truth for lead generators and marketers, because like we have a good partner, our friends over at, I don't know if you know the business OwnUp, but they do a lot of purchase leads. They have good partnerships, traffic partnerships, lead partnerships. But they take that business really seriously, right? Like they are, I know that team well, and they focus on helping convert. Like, they care about the user experience. They do a concierge, all these things. Like, that's a real business, and they're really working on like real demand generation and making that match. I think those types of companies win. In my opinion. And I think that a lot of marketers have the opportunity to step into that and to just add more, like, you just have to add a little bit more value into the ecosystem. And then the straight margin business of just, where it's just arbitrage is going to be tough to survive, I would think.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about this here as we dive in with regards to exclusive leads and different, characteristics and results from those types of leads. But before we do, hey, Mike, this is live, but this is recorded. It will be found right here at the same link that you came to, and then also on our Lead Generation World YouTube channel. It'll be there as well. So, all right. So why the heck did I reached out? So I saw something. It was, I think, almost a month ago now.
Yeah.
And this is what I saw. I saw you posted the graph on the right. It said first contact attempt and then conversion percentage. And of course, over the almost 18 years so I've been in the business along with you, I think the prevailing thought was true was that speed to lead was the absolute, no questions about it, most important factor for closing a lead. And I think it was by a pretty large margin, as a matter of fact. It wasn't some close range, right? I mean, it was that MIT study, which was like 600% more that if you call it within a minute than within, I think, 3 minutes or 5. I don't remember the breakdown, but it was astronomically different. So everybody, whether you're talking about mortgage leads, insurance leads, solar leads, whatever it was, but at the time, mortgage leads, I think, was probably the largest vertical. We're just figuring out tech to make a call within milliseconds.
Yeah.
And of course the big boys did it, right? The Quicken Loans and all those guys were the first ones. And all the smaller guys had to figure out, how do I sell against those people that get there first? But so when I saw this, I was like, wait, okay, this is interesting. There's not only a slight chance that it might be better to wait, but it's also the playing field's evened out a little bit here. So tell me first, how did you guys come up with these? What are these numbers based off of in the first place?
Yeah. All right. So let me throw the data first, and then I'll come back and talk a little more context. This is I think we're looking here at a little over 1 million records. This is the second half of last year. This is aggregate. Now this is consumer direct mortgage lender data. There's about 10 plus ish lenders data aggregated in here. We standardize a lot of our data so we can look at it in aggregate ways. So as the comments to a couple of the posts I put out there, there's always there's tons of dimensions that you can break into, but this is our best effort at taking those 1 million plus records. And what you're measuring here is you're measuring the time it takes to make your first phone contact attempt. And so you can see there's 4 bars here. That first bar, that's a quick, right? That's just, hey, you receive the lead and bang, you're executing that first contact attempt. And then the conversion is in this case, it's lock rate or some proxy for lock rate. So it's not quite a full conversion, but it's a little earlier conversion, but it lines up directionally very well with full conversion. And so, what you see is the comment speed is not a determining factor. Now again, this is aggregated, right? But this is just saying, look, you can convert leads whether you make that first contact attempt within 10 seconds or whether it takes you longer than an hour. Now, going back, that Leads 360 or Velocify, but the Leads 360 study, keep in mind that was early days, right? That was, I think you're right, 18 years ago, and we're talking. I think it was like the first bar was like an hour, and then it was like 4 hours. I can't even remember, but that's so like the scale there. This scale is much smaller. So we're talking 10 seconds, a minute, an hour, and longer than an hour. So what you're looking at here is kind of like, if you were to break this down more granularly, but this is like the first quarter of that Leads 360 initial study, right? And so part of this is like context. Like that study has really did a nice job of telling people, hey, look, just be responsive, right? Like don't sit when you get a lead. Be responsive. It's like, oh, okay. So everybody that buys leads today at any kind of scale, any sales org is responsive. Like they just are. They're responsive. They know they got a lot of money lined up against it. So you're responsive. So the point of this was less to say, hey, that's wrong. That's not, and I didn't come with an opinion. These are just facts. This is just, but it's more that, hey, like within that, everybody's responsive, but within that, like everybody's kind of different, right? Like this is aggregated. Some companies do really well when they make that initial contact attempt early. Others are okay waiting longer. But ultimately, there's no we as lead buyers don't need to be attached to certain dogma around, hey, you have to do it this way. And that I think
Okay.
was kind of the
Okay.
point.
Okay, so that's fair. So obviously every company's a little different, right? And it's attuned to their probably sales pitch, their offering, their working hours, their, all sorts of different things, I would imagine. But generally, you could probably take these as good benchmarks to formulate what works best for you, right? I mean, that's fair. So you guys, well, let me ask you this before we go on. What has anything changed? Like, has anything changed here that has led to this, or is this just a deeper look into that first hour?
Well, I personally, I mean, I would say lead buyers are just much more sophisticated, right? And the processes behind working leads, managing leads, converting leads is much more sophisticated. And so, yeah, you're multi-channel, right? Your phone, your text, your email, you're able to contact at multiple times a day. Some folks use CSRs, some folks use dialers, some folks manually dial with sales reps, whatever it is. But you see definitely an evolution. Again, people are spending anywhere from 50,000 up to $5 million a month on bringing those leads into their teams. So they take those costs seriously. And I like this. It's like, hey, look, like you're working leads. That's awesome. Regardless of even sometimes when you make that initial contact attempt, you're thorough. Even if it's longer than an hour, hey, like you're still following a process to cultivate that lead. And that's what we see across our buyers is like a holistic, just a holistic approach to conversion. But and this is what hopefully we'll get into, but like they're all unique. Like there's just no, there's the blueprints and the there's best practices, but the blueprints, everybody's approach is unique.
Yeah. I have two questions. One that requires the tinfoil hat, and then one that is more of a comment. And so let's put on the tinfoil hat for a second. Do you think that anything with regards to the consumer has changed that's led to these sort of different behavioral changes in how they are handling sales calls or shopping or comparing different shared lead, in this instance, shared leads? And I'm just pure speculation. Do you think anything, or is it, or or I guess this ties into my second comment, or is this a function of your product, your service that is allowing your clients in this instance to optimize based on multiple factors that allows them to succeed across a full hour? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the first one I would say, I mean, we've seen since we started doing this 8 years ago, we've seen connect rates or contact rates go from like 55% down to like 30% on phone. So yeah, I think there's a movement away, and that's actually an interesting study. I'd have to go back and pull some of our archive data, but that's an interesting study. Maybe I'll take that as a takeaway. But we've seen that, and I'm sure some of the contact centers that can speak to that better and either refute what I'm saying or add more substance to it. But those are real. I mean, that's a 60-70% loss in phone contact rate. Now that's been certainly conversion rates have been pretty consistent. So that's picked up by text and picked up maybe by email response, even, but primarily by text. Yeah, as far as we go, yeah, I mean, I think we stand as a symbol of now this is going to sound like but we stand as a symbol of like the evolution and like sophistication in lead buying. I mean, if you're using our values, you're using predictions. You're saying, I believe in data, I believe in math, I believe in predictions, and I'm going to use those to automate my process. So just by that, like, yeah, you're relatively sophisticated in your approach. You're not just taking a lead and slinging it over throwing it over the wall into your sales team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is a
Yeah, because
reasonable.
I don't think I gave you really enough, because this isn't obviously like a sales pitch type of thing, right? But I think it's really important because it speaks to sort of what you mentioned earlier, that it's not right or wrong. It's what's right for your company and what's right for
Yeah.
that lead and what's right for that salesperson, right? Which I think is the story behind ProPair to some extent, because you don't just go, here is your guide to close. It's a investigation on what works, and then it's a double down on what works, that I think you guys do,
Yeah.
which helps your clients out. So then subsequently, it's possible to think that out in the marketplace, it's still a big curve. But you
Yeah.
guys, is it possible that some of your clients, because they're looking at so many other variables for success, that speed to lead has almost been diminished as an important factor?
That's interesting. Yeah, I had actually, yeah, yeah, I didn't think, I mean, that's an interesting, sure. I mean, that is
Okay,
interesting. I think there's plenty of sophisticated lead buyers that don't use our services that probably
let's
would,
see this.
if I were to pull their data, would have similar type of stuff. But
Okay,
I think your main point though, I love is like, yeah, every shop's different. And so you've got to find if we can go to a few slides here in a bit, yeah, so let's get into this. This is actually interesting.
yeah,
So this is moving back to for hopefully the people that are on the call. I can't see who's participating, but when I posted a few of these, and I'll keep posting this data. I really enjoy doing this stuff. But these are kind of the themes that we heard back. So some of I think I asked specifically for observations, like, hey, why do you think this is happening? A couple of specifics that will actually, I have some follow-ups for weekend and after hours behave differently than weekday and workday, right? So that's a lead dimension. If a lead comes in on the weekend, that's going to behave differently than if it comes in during the week. Shared leads, like a movement away from shared leads into exclusive leads. With shared leads, maybe speed is more important. Those things behave differently. I have a kind of a cool slide that I'll share. And if we don't get to it now, I'll just publish it as well.
okay.
And then this concept that like the time horizon for the prospect, and like the proxy here is early funnel home shoppers, but like their time horizon matters. Like where they're at in their journey matters quite a bit in these conversion metrics, for sure. And then like the point that I love the best, and a few people made this, was which I expected, right? Like you put a big aggregate study up and people are like, well, it's hard to draw broad conclusions. It just depends. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Yep. It just depends, right? Like it depends. So be mindful, and I'm not telling anybody what to do. I think everybody's, encouragement to remain vigilant and mindful about why you're doing what you're doing. And are you following a standard that was put out there a while ago, or are you really looking at your particular business, understanding what you do well? We're all unique. You and I, we talked about this earlier. We run our own businesses. No one could run our business. Like our businesses are very unique. They're very different. And by understanding your business, you spend a lot of time with it. You kind of learn what to do and how to handle it. And that is kind of, that would be the encouragement here. And then lastly, we got like just some other general awesome observations about, desperation, that it kind of speed is desperate, speed indicates desperation, which is a double-edged sword. But
Okay, well, so let's tackle this first one. Work hours and versus after hours. What did you guys find here?
yeah, cool. So this is what we found here. The off hours, you can be effective. Some of the stuff is really counterintuitive. So just to explain this plot, what you're looking at here. Still, you've got the metric we're using is conversion rate. The left group of 4 bars, it's still using the same bands: the within 10 seconds, within 1 minute, within an hour, within longer than an hour. And all of these are that initial contact, when that initial contact attempt is made. And you see on the left side, the darker blue there, those are the in-work hours. So, what I don't put in here is lead volume. Clearly, that in-work hours, there's going to be a lot more leads in work hours. But, like we can imagine this is 11 a.m., those within 10 seconds, and people are just executing. call my lead quick, call my lead quick. And you can see like in that environment, okay, like you're going to get through it, but like that's just at that point, you're just grinding away at dials. You're calling most likely shared leads. So intuitively, it kind of makes sense that that would not perform as well. Again, maybe counterintuitive, some intuitive, a little bit more for me. I've been looking at this a while. On the other side is the out of work hours, and there what you see that's frankly kind of exciting. I think for anybody that runs a sales org is like, oh wow, okay, like that's cool. So if I extend my hours a little bit, and I have people maybe coming earlier or work later, or this doesn't include weekends. This is just weekdays. Then I still execute and I still do prompt follow up. I can get in this case, a pretty significant boost. Again, I'm not prescribing anything here, but this is just a pattern that we see that I think could be interesting for lead buyers.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, and granted, this is so big grain of salt here, big dump of salt on this, but 15 years ago doing mortgage, and we've found that the weekends crushed, right? Because most people, our competition, weren't working on the weekends, and we were more likely to give the Mondays off to people because they were horrible. Mondays were horrible for us, and I don't know if it's changed or not, but looking at those hours, days, and all that sort of stuff is just super important to become more effective and more efficient. So. All right. So you did touch on exclusive and shared leads. So let's take a look at that now.
Yeah, this is the biggest one. And this is like, I think it's interesting, like in light of what you were talking about with the regulatory changes coming up, like this is a really interesting one. And again, counterintuitive a bit in that, if so on the left side are exclusive leads, it's the same chart, but on the left side is exclusive. And there you see overall, right? If you were to combine those four time periods, you're going to see that your exclusive leads outperform your shared leads by about 3.5 to 1, which is typically, we've seen that as like going back to your other question. We've seen that for 7 years. That is pretty consistent, that 3.5-ish or so outperformance, again, with a lot of aggregated data. So that's typically what we see. But in this case, hey, like being prompt with those exclusive leads is a benefit. It pays off. And like, there's a lot of reasons. Again, I'm not a marketer, but like longer than an hour, it's kind of like somebody submits an exclusive lead and they don't hear from me. Is like, well, what are they not like want my business? So I don't know. But again, now I'm overreaching. I'm just the data guy, so I'm just overreaching.
No. I mean, there's assumptions. I think we can all behavioral assumptions we can all make, right? when shopping, at least. If whatever I'm looking for, if I'm looking for a home service contractor or whatever it is, and then I put a form in and I don't hear back from them in an hour, I'm looking for somebody else, and that's just because I am doing that right now. And now is when I have time, and not in an hour or later. It's now. I wonder though, I remember again, going back, that the discrepancy between cost of an exclusive lead and an exclusive lead didn't equate, or it didn't quite match the increase in conversion rate, and subsequently exclusively sometimes had a tendency to have a higher cost per sale. Now, I would say that at the time our sales team was extremely competitive and just knew how to sell, and so they did well with shared leads. So I think there's some probably behavioral things there with that team that maybe just did really well with shared leads versus exclusive leads. But another anecdote, like just question is, are exclusive leads cost effective for people that you see, or do you even have that insight?
Well, first of all, I think you right there. You nailed it. It's like your team's different. I mean, that's like the whole point.
Yeah, for sure.
But so this, keep in mind what you're seeing when you're looking at exclusive here. This is a combination of exclusive customer generated, so on their own sites, rate tables, and form leads. So this isn't just straight form leads exclusive. Typically, what we see with form leads exclusive relative to shared leads is about a 2-to-1 outperformance. Maybe a little bit less. You don't totally trust the exclusive nature of form leads. So that's a bit of a challenge. But Yeah, I mean, I think again, it comes down to you got to basically you have to take all of that and that like your rule of hey, I think it didn't work, like the thing you learned. It's like okay, well, just be ready to be wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
and look again.
Um, do you have that weekend performance data broken out?
I do. I don't have it here, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure, Jessica. I can share. I can
Okay.
definitely share that with you.
All right. So obviously, we're talking about exclusive and shared, and for this discussion, we've really been talking about mortgage. Um, and I think it's safe to say that this applies really to probably any lead, but certainly there's some variations based on the product type and the sales process, and that sort of thing that will affect some of these numbers. But I think from a uh, uh, a strategy standpoint, and call it, this is probably applicable. But since we're talking about mortgage, let's talk a little bit about the differences between purchase and refinance, and this may have some parallels with other industries. So a purchase lead obviously is something that um, usually, to be honest with you, you got to tell me, because obviously a purchase sales process, I don't know when they've filled that form out. Have they filled it out and found a home yet? Or they've just found a home and gone into a purchase agreement? Who the heck knows? And I guess that's probably a big determining factor of length of that sales process. And then obviously refinance, I'm sure they're trying to do that immediately. So let's talk about first contact attempts and all that sort of stuff with regards to potentially a longer sales
Yeah.
process and a shorter sales process.
Yeah. It reminds me. Did you watch True Detective recently? The most recent True Detective. So,
No, I haven't. I haven't. I'm not quite yet over 55 yet.
so she has. So the detective in this season has. I'm going to blow through that. The detective in this season just asks these. She like her interrogation style is ask the right question. You're not asking the right what question you have. What, and she constantly just pesters her lieutenants to like ask the right question. What's the question? So I think you asked the right question there, which is like. So the context here, refinance, clearly, this is the second half of last year. So refinance conversion rates relative to purchase rates are low within our network. But the purchase here, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it outperforms. What's in that purchase? And you're right. There are really, we think about it as four, from what we see across our customers is how they're aggregated is four main stages where like super high funnel, mid funnel, like starting to get a contract and then like locked in and just looking for a lender. And those performances, that's not represented here. That's not broken out here. That performance is going to differ wildly relative, and it's massive. And those should be treated differently. So that's a great point of like, yeah, that's knowing your customer. And the majority of our customers that are doing purchase leads effectively treat those not quite as different products, but treat those clearly as different experiences. And it's a great thing to understand about your funnel. I will say on the just back to the mortgage piece. So what we're looking at today, about 60% of our data and our customer base is in the mortgage industry. So that's what we're choosing. We're looking at mortgage. It is like those are consumer direct mortgage shops are pretty sophisticated sales orgs, certainly with lead buys. And so it's a pretty good proxy for what we see. We're also doing auto loans, personal loans, insurance, and we see very similar results. We did we're not doing EDU, but EDU, as I remember, is kind of similar as well. So there's some similarities.
Are purchase leads usually exclusive? I'm just seeing some parallels here with these numbers with exclusive and shared versus purchase and refinance. I'm not sure if there's any correlation here, but
maybe. Yeah, I'd have to. You mean like separate the purchase? Yeah, that's a good point. I'd separate the purchase. I don't think I've looked at that.
I'm just curious. Yeah. Well, it's just interesting that. Well, what's the speculation here? Again, let's put on the tinfoil hat of why a purchase lead would have a higher conversion at within 10 seconds and a refinance wouldn't. What's my
guess? Gut?
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. There's probably a pretty good mix of exclusive purchase leads in there. I don't know. I got to get some marketers. I'm gonna maybe
Yeah.
Jessica Rojas, but Jessica Rowe
No,
probably.
hey, we're just chopping it up here. I
We need
think it's
more
just
people. I need
interesting
more people
to
in this conversation for that.
no, well, I listen. The good news is the data is what it is, and then us two knuckleheads can talk as much as we want about what we think. Um, Again, going back to your point that this is applicable differently to different companies and different processes and different leads, and the idea is to have these at your disposal so you can make informed decisions, and not leave it up to us knuckleheads to speculate. But I just what is that what my gut would tell me that is related to the shopping experience. For some odd reason, I'm just really curious why that
Yeah, maybe
conversion
there's
rate
some
would
urgency too, right? Like there's some urgency around if you're when you're
maybe.
shopping for even if you're early funnel, um,
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
kind of like you're right there, you're ready to roll. Maybe I don't know, maybe it's people in cars that are out looking around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually have a couple people in mind that if we're interested ever in opening that up, that would be real, that could speak on that really well.
100%. I think it's great.
Yeah,
One of the fun things about this is just to hear and see what's going on because, I know a lot of lead buyers or lead sellers they're living in their own world, their own four walls of their corporation and their numbers, and to see some of these things hopefully spark some other ideas, some other questions that they can
yeah, it's
ask
awesome.
their own data to figure out. So all right, so two basic forms of lead capture is obviously your typical lead form, and then rate tables. I remember years, it's so hard to tell when when things were, if it was last year or 10 years ago. But rate tables, became pretty prominent with some originators, and other ones couldn't do anything with it. Right? It was just a different process that some could work and some couldn't. Tell me about what's going on here with the comparison between conversion rate with first attempts and timing, and between these two types of leads.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think it's a great observation. I remember just 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, there's a split between form lead buyers and rate
Yeah,
table lead buyers, and I think that both of them have realized they got to that those two things have come or those
they
two
need to have a
populations.
good proper mix. Yeah,
You got it. You got it. So on the form side, I think the part that's most interesting, the rate table is less interesting because great, you got somebody on the site. It's typically exclusive. That's probably going to feed over from that exclusive. We pulled the exclusives out of there. There's not a ton of non-exclusive rate tables, but if we pulled that out of there, it'd probably flatten out. But again, what's interesting here is the form leads, right? I mean, I think that's what, that's probably in this graph, that probably represents 85% of the lead volume. And it's flat. I mean, it's effectively flat. That's not saying don't go out and try to make your initial contact attempt quickly. But what it says is that that you can execute a lot of different strategies and be okay as long as you understand what that strategy is, why you're doing that strategy, and then you obviously execute that strategy. So again, not that hey, you like if we saw the form leads look like the rate table looks, you would go, okay, well, I gotta get invest in a dialer. I gotta get out there. I gotta make sure I hit everything right away. And that's not what we see.
Well, listen, it's counterintuitive to whatever I've ever, and that's why I was so surprised to see it. And like, what's going on here? This is a flat, hour, longer than an hour is a little ambiguous. Like, who knows? I guess you're assuming you're taking all data past an hour. Or,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
insane.
Mm-hmm.
That number is relatively flat.
Yeah. I mean, you could
And
break that out. I'm sure,
yeah.
that we could break out. I mean, there's a million ways to break that, but that would be a good one probably to break out as well.
Okay, I want to pop ahead because I think this other side, this chart probably sort of summarizes a number of different things. If that's okay, is it okay if I
Yeah.
pop over that
Yeah.
other?
Totally fine. Yep.
Because here's what we're looking at, right? Actually, you tell us what we're looking at here.
Okay. So this is like, this is an example of what, as like, I don't have a prescription for what anybody should do, But this is an example of the data that our customers will see and that our customers are then able to follow. So what you're looking at now, the time ranges for the first contact attempt have flipped. They're on the top now. So those are the 4 groups. They stay the same, but the labels are up top now. And then the new columns, the 5 columns within each one of those time brackets, there, if you can't read that, it's just labeled most likely all the way down to least likely. And what that definitionally, what that is that is actually an output from our rank product. And in this case, it's saying to our customers, hey, when they get the lead in real time, they know it's most likely to convert. And then they have the ones that are least likely to convert. That's attached to each lead record. It's not put as most likely. It can be put as an integer. It can be put as however you want. But when each lead that comes in gets, it's got a probability attached to it. And then we convert that usually into an integer or into something like most likely, least likely. So what you see here is now you see, like, let's just take that first within 10 seconds is rather if I'm making a pitch here, the pitch is like we see how much uniformity there is and we know how much variance there is across individual sales org performance. So, okay, great. Like, what do you do about that? Well, you can do stuff with that, right? Because again, we've seen that within 10 seconds, all the way up to longer than an hour is pretty flat across shared form leads. It's just pretty flat performance. So how can you manipulate performance? How can you get an advantage? And again, everybody's going to be different. So maybe, different shops perform differently, but this is one way to do it where you see here within 10 seconds, we see what we're predicting is the leads that are most likely to convert are at a 4 to 5x, probably in this case, 4x performance improvement over the ones that are least likely to convert. Now that is something you can execute a strategy around, right? If you know those things at the onset, you can now execute a strategy around how you prioritize those assignments, how you prioritize your contact attempts, how you prioritize your loan officer assignments or your sales agent assignments, how you prioritize your ongoing nurturing. There's just one example of a value that we'll give you. And you can see it goes across the whole thing. So again, you're not looking at when a lead was contacted and seeing a lot of variance, but then within that bucket, you're going, okay, great. Like I actually can dig a level deeper. And now I understand because I have a value that is unique to me and unique to my leads. I have a value and I can use that to then automate how I execute my sales conversion process.
Yeah. What's going through my mind is looking at this. And if I was to just generally try to build a sales team around this, I would probably have some of my higher converting I don't know. I would have some of my higher converting guys taking less leads, but taking the ones that are more important, the ones that need a speed to lead so that they're not getting stuck in the system per se, that they are getting addressed. And those guys are getting likely higher conversions, so they're making money just as much. And then some of these other ones that don't matter as far as time goes, sending that into a bigger pool where if it sits for a minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, and goes to a group or a Shark Tank type of situation where someone can pull it when they're not busy, then it's okay because we know that those leads are going to convert relatively the same across the board, and then subsequently sort of team out. And obviously looking at loan officers based on performance on their lead type, their lead location, loan type, all that sort of stuff would be something I would look at too. But just from a straight grouping of a sales team, I think I would distribute less of the leads to a high performing sales group that may have a downtime while waiting for that high lead, but they're going to call it within a millisecond and they're going to get it and they're going to be awesome and they're going to close them. I don't know.
Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, I love listening to you talk because that's a lead buyer. That's a good lead. If you're a lead buyer and you're running a sales org, those are the conversations you should be like. Those are strategic conversations that you have with your team, and then you can test and execute and monitor like that. Exactly. That's amazing, right? You want that flexibility, but it's not hey, I got to call every lead within 10 seconds. Absolutely. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I got it. So,
because I think what happens, and I mean, for lack of tech, right? They don't have the right technology or insight into their information is, hey, I've got a sales team of 5, 10, 20, if they're small, if they're large, hundreds, and I'm just throwing everything into a pot and people are grabbing them and they're closing, and some close better for whatever reason and some don't. And, I buy less of those, the ones that don't, and more of the ones that do. And I hope it all works, and that's mainly I'm guessing, and I'm sure times have changed. I'm sure buyers are a lot more sophisticated than I was. But I think back, I'm certain most companies are just sort of doing that, which is unfortunate. And while they're successful, they could be much more successful if they were sort of looking deeper into these numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's where the magic is. And like I said, in mortgage, we see a lot more sophistication and understanding. And then, like that's, I mean, our what we do is we provide the values, we build data architectures, and we provide the values to pull these insights out very easily. And then the biggest thing we do is we give them values to then execute. And like, honestly, just like, so I love what you were saying, like just be strategic about what you're doing and be thoughtful and be able to then execute. You have the tools and technologies. Not like sales orgs don't need to go and overhaul their whole technology stack. But if they start to add predictions in there, then those are really good weapons. Once they understand, gather their insights, they can craft, processes against it. And then you just like automate, learn, execute, automate, learn, execute, like just keep, I'm a data geek, but that stuff's like fun. Right.
Yeah.
And from our customers, like, yeah, that they enjoy it. Like they enjoy the data more than anything. And so now you have the ability to use it.
I should have probably, and I will, if any, because we're going to be wrapping up here in a couple minutes. If anyone has any questions for Ethan, please type them in the comments right now, and we'll try to get them answered before we wrap up here. But yeah, this is great. I mean, I think let's see. Is there any other? I think you kind of go over what we sort of discuss as far as the numbers and all that kind of stuff. But what is this here? Tell the tape.
Oh, this is if you would get, this is the promo. So our average customer is running 3.5 of our production models. So that's either 3 or 4, somewhere between 3 and 4. So this is what we do. We process 35,000 daily transactions. This kind of just gives a foundation to the data we're seeing. Like this is how we get that data. Our transaction speed super quick. We're turning values around really quickly. And then we think about, like, when we talk to customers, it's like, it's less like, hey, we're improving lead conversion as much as it's like, we're just helping you waste less of your leads. And our customers vary. I mean, what customers tell us is you're going to see anywhere from 15 to 30% if you're using a bunch of applications across your business. So like, we love to hear that. That's great. If you're using our values intelligently, then you stand to reduce your waste. And that's like kind of what we're after.
Cool, man. Well, listen, if I thank you first of all for coming on and explaining this stuff, because when I saw it, I was like, I guess it just speaks how geeky we are with this stuff. But I was like, wait, what is this? These numbers don't make sense, right? To the old adage, speed to lead is the most important thing, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm happy you were able to come on and sort of talk through these things and provide some really interesting insights that people can start thinking about, start asking questions in their own organization. Now, if they want to get that presentation or get some more information for you, I got your email up here. This is perfect. Accurate, right?
Yep, that's perfect. Yep.
Yeah, they can shoot you an email. Obviously, you're on LinkedIn. You're tagged in this this stream in the description or comments as a speaker. Yep. And then, of course, they can check out your website, ProPair.ai, and see what you guys got going on. Yep. But I thought it was really, really interesting. Thanks for spending the last 55 minutes with me.
Yeah, it's awesome
about it. It's pretty cool stuff. And hopefully, I think we, as we discussed prior to this going live, I'm hoping to have you at Contact.io in August. to really dive into these, different strategies that you're seeing, not just across one buyer, but across a number of them, that really starts to be quite enlightening as to a general roadmap that people can start to go down, and then determine, what right or left they need to make for that's right for their company. But I'm hoping to have you at Contact to share some of that stuff. Contact.io, for those that don't know, is all about inbound and outbound calls. I call them performance calls, basically sales driven calls, not customer service. So if you're a mortgage or solar or whatever B2C or B2B brand that's making outbound dials on individuals or companies, it's really the only show that is out there for this. Most shows are customer service, and then if you buy calls or want to buy inbound calls, this is the show to come to. So I'm hoping to have you there, Ethan. Thanks for doing this, and we'll dive even deeper at Contact.io probably.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to that. It's a great I love how I actually love that it's how targeted it is. It's great.
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely cool. And people love. So, okay, enough is enough. Thank you, Ethan. I'll let you get back to True Detective, and then we'll catch up at a later time.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see everybody.
Right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.